Welcome to Talking Giants, presented by SeatGeek. I'm your host, Bobby Skinner, by myself. Justin is on vacation in Charlotte, North Carolina. He's at some type of rally. I'm not sure exactly. So I hope he's enjoying that. And I got some FOMO. We have Jordan Raanan on the pod today, right? Media's first time being at an OTA with the this offseason with the vets, the rookies, all there together. Daniel Jones throwing. So we actually hit basically every topic that we can. So we're going to get into all of that. Some good stuff out of OTA interviews wise, like we kind of have some answers, right? Sometimes you got to as I change my camera, sometimes you got to search deeply for interview answers in OTAs. You're zooming in. Does this guy have a green dot? They kind of gave him Elminor's at left guard, Runyon's at right guard, Flott's going to play on the outside. Andre Patterson's working with the defensive ends, the edge guys. The only thing we didn't get a clear-cut answer, wasn't even asked, is Brian Daboll calling plays? But Dan Duggan said, hey, it sure as hell looks like Brian Daboll's calling plays. So I think we can all assume that at this point. So gonna send it to the interview with Jordan Raanan. First, I got to talk to you guys about something. John Boy Media and iHeart Podcasts have teamed up together as one. What do I mean? You're asking, what the hell is this guy saying? I mean, two of your favorite John Boy Media shows, right, can now be found over at the Dan Patrick Show. You guys know who Dan Patrick is. He's the guy from the Longest Yard movie. In addition to where you already watch or listen, that's right. And it's there in addition to where you already watch or listen. That's right. Wake and Jake and Jimmy's Three Things have joined the iHeart Podcast and Dan Patrick Show family. And the best part, they'll still continue to be the same shows you know and love. And I know that you guys know and love those shows. If you couldn't tell, we're really friggin' excited about this one. And we couldn't do cool stuff like this if it wasn't for all your support. So thank you. Specifically you, Jeffrey. You're listening in the car. Thank you very much, Jeffrey. And here's Jordan Raanan. All right, now welcome on to the show, Jordan Raanan of ESPN, who was just on SportsCenter. He delayed this interview to go on SportsCenter, which we can understand. Hey, I'm like Drew Lock. First question, what the hell? They were letting you guys record 7-on-7s at OTAs today?
Yeah, I was a little surprised. I'm not gonna lie. It makes you wonder if they wanted you to see Daniel Jones out there take those 7-on-7s, and I think maybe it was just like a kind of a gift there. Hey, we know you guys want the Daniel Jones film and footage. That's what it's all about, and he's coming back. Their starter. They've been very adamant, Bobby, about how he's their starter. And, I think they wanted you to see, hey, look, here's, Daniel Jones, 6 months and 2 days removed from serious knee injury, right? ACL. And he's out on the field taking snaps. Looks like, pretty much unaffected. No brace. Moving pretty well. So I think that maybe was part of that.
Yeah, I mean, any idea that he wasn't going to be ready was always weird to me. But
I agree. Daniel Jones, there's one thing we know about him is he's going to work his ass off.
Yeah, I'd be sure. I would have been shocked if he wasn't, throwing the first day of camp. Obviously, he's not an 11 or 11 right now, but kind of expected to see this. I mean, how you get? Listen, 1 day of 7-on-7 OTAs doesn't mean much, and really, nothing means anything until we get out on the field, because we saw how good they looked last year in training camp, and then it all fell apart when the bullets started flying. But how does he look? You guys talked to him. He got some pretty tough, probably the toughest media session he's ever had today. How does he look? How does he feel? What's the whole rundown on Daniel Jones right now?
Well, he feels good. I mean, you get that from him, that he feels like he's doing well in his rehab. Now, what I also saw there with Daniel Jones is perhaps the most honest version of Daniel Jones that we've received so far, right? Like a little looser, a little more honest to say perhaps what's on his mind rather than deflect, right? Because he was flat out asked about, what did you think about the possibility of them drafting a guy as you're sitting there in the draft and, drafting a guy at your position, essentially putting your future at risk, right? Because they draft a guy, we all know what that means. And he chuckled for a second, right? Like an honest chuckle, being like, what was the quote? It was, I wasn't fired up about it. no S, no poop. Of course, I wasn't fired up about it. Like, what do you expect me to say when I'm sitting there in that situation and they're potentially about to draft my successor? And so it does make me think, if you go back, Daniel Jones wasn't, and I know, and look, this was a no-brainer decision not to pick up the 50-year option. Remember, he had a neck injury at the time. But not picking up the 50-year option there, you heard from plenty of people, and you kind of tell it kind of ticked him off. And what happened? He actually played really well that year. So maybe a ticked off Daniel Jones is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm not. I want to attribute his success to being ticked off in 2020. But like you mentioned, one person asked him, like, they tried to trade up to get a quarterback. What did you think about that? And he even like, you don't know that. He's like, I don't know that, and you don't know that. Like, he even like pushed back on that a little bit.
Yeah.
So again, now it wasn't some like it wasn't facing heaters nonstop, but that felt like the toughest round of questions, because it was the first time where it's like, it's the first time where his job has been on the line, when like in a vacuum. It looks like you said, he looks good out there, completing passes in 7-on-7, like nothing out of the ordinary for him.
Let me say this: just by standing there and looking, you wouldn't know that guy is coming back from a torn ACL. There was like nothing you could look at and say, aside from the fact that he wasn't in the 11-on-11 drills. Like, physically though, there was nothing you could be like, he's limping, he's moving. You could see the brace. You could see him being tentative. Like, it just looked like a normal quarterback going out there and doing drills and throwing the ball around.
Tyrod Taylor 2 years ago comes in OTAs, spinning the ball around, and it's a talk like, hey, he's a legitimate like quarterback in the NFL. How was Drew Lock's first day in front of the media?
He had a rough day. Accuracy was off. There was some bad passes, like real bad passes. One where he actually got sacked and they stopped, but even though like Wan'Dale Robinson was coming across the middle, wide open, like no one within 10 yards of him, and the throw was so high and wide that Wan'Dale Robinson like stopped, thinking that it was somebody behind him or something. Like, that's how poor a throw was. So yeah, I don't know. It was a tough day for Drew Lock. You didn't look at that. You didn't look at that and be like, this is the guy that's going to challenge Daniel Jones for his starting job. I'll say that. He did hit Malik Neighbors for a long touchdown, contested by the defense. That, again, potentially probably a sack, but Malik Neighbors, nice little double move down the sort of like a 7 route, deep to the right corner for a long touchdown. And when you're the Giants and you're a Giants fan, that gets you excited, because that's what Malik Neighbors brings to this team, right? There's an explosiveness that he brings that other guys haven't had. Like, yeah, Jalen Hyatt's explosive, but doesn't have the run after catch ability that he has. Right? Wan'Dale Robinson, not even close to the same level athlete. So,
yeah, I think Malik Neighbors is the one guy that we're allowed to like get a little bit overexcited about through camp and OTAs and everything, because last year I think they looked really good on offense, but at the end of the day they weren't hitting the quarterback, and that made a huge difference because we saw some of the offensive line issues that the Giants dealt with early on in the season. But Malik Neighbors is new, and we do have all the expectations of the world. So if he's playing great, it's not a reach to like, okay, well, he's going to be great in the NFL. Like, it's not a Trey Hawkins, overreaction if Malik Neighbors is out there playing well.
But Jalen Hyatt looked like really good last summer. Like, he could do some serious damage. Again,
I think
like
Hyatt did everything that
offensive line.
Hyatt did everything that what Hyatt did in camp is what he did in the regular season. Catch deep passes, and that was it.
But, it happened more often because you can't sack the quarterback in those drills. But again, today, same thing. Andrew Thomas and Evan Neal weren't out there. So the Giants' starting tackles are Josh Ezeudu at left tackle. We saw how that went last year. And Yadni Cahoust as the right tackle, because Jermaine Luminors, they're working him at guard. So if that's the case, that's trouble again, Bobby.
Let's talk.
You're sitting in.
Let's talk about that, because when they were, going through walkthroughs, whatever, Jermaine or Evan Neal's at right tackle, right? And I think a lot of people reacted to that, like, oh, Evan Neal's at right tackle, and that's the part I think that should be set right now. What do you think of how they're deploying this offensive line? Right, they signed John Runyon to the $10 million a year deal, which is kind of like a modest deal at this point with a salary cap, and then Jermaine Eleanor, which feels like a great value signing at $7 million per year. He started the last 2 years at right tackle. Like he's kind of a tackle in the NFL, and they're exclusively working him at left guard, right? Where again, they were in the situation in camp where we don't have tackles. Thomas not practicing, Neal not going to practice in full, and we are sticking Eleanor at guard. Like at this point, is that the starting five right there? And it's not going to be changed. Are they going to rotate those guys? What's the leash going to be on it? I mean, I could talk about this for 20 minutes. Been talking about it all off season. Like,
Yeah.
what? Let's start with this. What is the leash like on Evan Neal?
The more you hear them talk and see the actions that they have, the more you think they're really intent on trying this Evan Neal out again and making sure, doing everything possible to see if it works. Like I thought maybe a month ago, hey, there's a good chance I probably lean towards Illuminor end up starting at right tackle by the start of the season. I'm probably swayed in the other direction at this point of saying, you know what? They're going to give Evan Neal, and he's their guy. They drafted him high. They're going to give him every possible opportunity to be the starting right tackle. If he fails miserably at some point, they have no choice. They have to do it. But isn't it telling enough, Bobby, that John Runyon Jr., who, like you said, he's their number one, $10 million a year off-season free agent signing on the offensive line. He said he prefers to play left guard. They're starting him on the right side. Why is that? We all know. Because they want their best guy to protect Evan Neal. Right? It doesn't take a brain surgeon to put two and two together there. And so that's where we are right now. And it's because it seems like they're going to roll Evan Neal and try and make that work.
And I saw Art say that they were working Aaron Stinney at right tackle. Like, but let's say it doesn't work, though. Like, let's say we get through 2 weeks of camp and it does not look good. Are they going to are they going to be like, you know what, Eleanor, right tackle, Aaron Stinney, Josh Ezeudu, whoever you are now a starting guard on this team? Like, does that happen, or are they going to wait until in season? Are they going to force him to lose it from game action?
Yeah, that's a tough one to answer. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball. I really can't answer that. I will say this about this regime, though. They have given up on guys, and, they have been quick to make changes at times when things aren't working, with guys that are, from their regime, guys that they signed. Like, they got off Glowinski really quickly. That was their signing. To maybe even too quickly, right? Last year,
yeah.
They wouldn't even play Glowinski, and we were thinking about it. Do you think about do you know who they started in week 3 against San Francisco? Do you remember?
Yeah, Shane Lemieux at left guard. Like? Shane Lemieux, Marcus McKeithen, John Michael Schmitz, Josh Ezeudu. Just saying it out loud is so bad.
And Evan Neal. And I know people want to say Daniel Jones so bad. There is no quarterback in this world who's going to be playing really well under that situation that they were in. Like, think about that offensive line they put out in week 3. That is bananas. And I was reminded of it because I'm watching Josh Ezeudu play left tackle, and it's like they want to kill his confidence. Right?
Yeah, what's that? Again, his confidence has to be shot. Why aren't they like, hey, reset, you're playing like that's something I don't
play him at tackle. Don't put him against Brian Burns every play. Like,
well, and that's the thing.
Not every play, but you get my point.
Here's the thing. He may be their 4th best tackle, but they need to get another 4th tackle then. Like, he should be practicing. His way to success in the NFL is to be a guard. You drafted him high. This isn't just a 6th-round pick out there you're using, just using as a body. Like, if you just need a body, put Marcus McKeithen out there. If you just need a body out there, let Josh Ezeudu work at his guard spot. So, I was hoping that, like, kind of my worst fears with how they are taking they didn't add anyone in the draft. Okay, well, now they're forcing Eleanor to play like guard, and they're going to put Neal at right tackle and hope it works out. And hey, I hope it works out too. I would give Neal first crack at that anyways. And then they're going to put Ezeudu, like Ezeudu's working at tackle. Like, no, let him work at guard. Let him be a guard. Forget the idea that he can ever be a tackle in the NFL. I know his feet are fast. He's not a tackle. And I just feel like they're getting ready. They're getting set up to do the musical chairs thing once again, instead of simply, having 5 starters and a backup tackle, a backup guard, and a backup center, and letting the backups work at both of those spots.
And I'll say this. They want to be like, hey, just give it a chance. Like, no, this Giants organization, this Giants team, they don't get the benefit of the doubt of the offensive line. It's been 12 years. We've seen it over and over again. And it's like, oh my God, are we really doing this again? Like, so yeah, I think as a Giant fan or even someone that's watching it, you have every right to question, like, what are you doing here? Like, just put him at guard, leave him at that spot, let him work at that spot. You're sick of seeing guys bounce back and forth. Say, you know what? We'll play him here. We'll try him here. We'll put him here. Like, and then not working out.
When they say cross training, that means your backup guard works at left and right guard. It doesn't mean you're starting, possible starting right tackle works at 3 different positions, or Ben Bredesen last year. And the one thing I didn't blame Bobby Johnson, because Bobby Johnson I don't think was a good O-line coach, should have been fired, got fired. The one thing I didn't blame him for was the rotation. Like, that's not a Bobby Johnson initiative. That is Brian Dable's decision. And it looks like, he was asked about it today, and he essentially answered the question by not answering it. Like, yes, we're going to be rotating guys in camp once again, rotating starters in camp once again.
And the one guy who wouldn't answer whether they're rotating or not, and is that if he's going to be taking guard snaps, is Evan Neal.
Which I agree. I don't think Evan Neal should be working at guard, right? It should be he either works.
You got to start getting a contingency plan. At least he should be taking snaps here or there, in my opinion.
My thing with Evan Neal is either you are good enough to be the starting tackle or you're the backup tackle. Like, I know I wouldn't want to be working him at guard. And then Jermaine Eleanor, I would be like, hey, either we have a really good swing tackle or a starting right tackle in him. That's a good thing. I know we're, afraid of having a depth player that has any type of value, but we can do that. So that's where, listen, I hope Carmen Bracillo figures some things out with this group, and I think he will. I think Bobby Johnson was a bad O-line coach. But, they're facing Brian Flores week 1, right? You got to be on the same page. And if you got guys moving in and out of the lineup and not having good communication, and a second-year center, you're just setting yourself for failure. When you guys talk to Carmen Bracillo, which I would assume is next week, can you
next Thursday, I believe.
Can you ask him? This is a question for me and me only, because I thought they'd do it. He has a full clinic out there of the run game using a fullback, right? He's always had a fullback in the NFL with Jakob Johnson, who is a free agent. Can you ask him, hey, what you've valued fullback very highly in your career as an O-line coach? What are your thoughts on not having one?
I will say this, and I know this.
Don't say Daniel Bellinger.
No, the Giants actually talked to people during free agency about the possibility of fullback. I had heard that from other people who had, maybe people out there who had fullbacks. And I did see a tight end working in that role. That could be something we see if Jack Stoll could be looked at as kind of like a tight end type player. I'm sorry, a fullback type player.
But he's never done it. But
your brain's working. You were kind of trying to digest that.
I thought you were going to say Daniel Bellinger, because Bellinger can actually do that.
Bellinger wasn't here today, so we didn't get to see him.
True. Okay. So, and again, if you're asking me,
I think it was Jack Stoll. Is Jack Stoll 89? I mean, I'm still learning the new numbers.
Jack Stoll is number 89.
Pretty sure it was Jack Stoll.
Yeah, he's number 89.
But they're going to use. It makes me think that they're going to use some of these tight ends in a version of that role.
Which I think you should use anyways, even if you have a fullback. But it's just good to have a true fullback on the roster, and that guy gets to contribute to special teams too. And I mean, the guy that Carmen Bracillo has had his entire career is a free agent, and Jakob Johnson was with him in New England and Las Vegas. So I would like that question just for me. I would be very thankful if you can do that, and make sure the Giants have their cameras rolling when you do ask that question.
Now you're asking too much. You went overboard.
No.
It's bad enough you're asking me to ask a fullback question. Now you want me to do it.
Oh, what are you going to ask about Evan Neal's confidence? You think Evan Neal, we're gonna get 20
because
Evan Neal questions.
Evan Neal's not a bigger topic of conversation than Jakob Johnson.
But we don't need any questions. We know the deal. He needs to be good. Got it. Simple as that. Ask him about a zone gap split and fullbacks. That's what we wanted. That's what people who watch assistant coaching press conferences want to hear, right? You know how it's like, oh, well, this,
here's the problem.
People will get mad at you guys for not asking crazy questions. Well, you're not the audience. The audience is the 95%.
No, you have it totally wrong.
The assistant coaching interviews, we are the nerds are the audience.
No, you have it wrong. We're not doing it for there to be an audience. We're doing it for other purposes. We're doing it for information we use for other things. There just happens to be cameras there, and then you guys critique what our questions are in some press conference, which really shouldn't be broadcast. the whole press conference scenario shouldn't be broadcast, but there's inside, talk. Sometimes there's jokes going back and forth, and you could take them, people like you, and there's nothing wrong with it. And it's easy fodder for you. It could be funny because if you take it out of the context of what it really is, and you can just make it into what it's not. And so it's crazy that we're actually, and that's a weird part of the job now is I know that all these press conferences are being broadcast, but the press conference in general is not made to be broadcast and used as straight content like that.
Yeah, it's made for you guys to have all out of context clips, and we can't add the context. Just kidding. But that is kind of true. But just ask Priscilla about the fullback, please. I'm begging. I've been talking about it since he's been hired. I mean, I feel like these are two big stories for an OTAs that we haven't talked about. Waller, right? Okay. Last time we had you on was at the Combine. We were trying to get someone to just say flat out he might retire. And the day
I was hinting to you as hard as I could.
Yeah, and then the day,
because I thought I had heard that he was going to retire, so I thought that I would be able to get that by the end of the Combine. I had already put in inquiries with people, and I already heard back that he was telling other people that he was going to retire. So I was trying to hint it, but
yeah, and then the day after,
same spot.
That what happened is your interview actually got the ball rolling because you came on, you kind of hinted at it, and then someone's like, "What did Jordan say?" And it was like, shit,
Raanan was already on it. He was
already on it, but he wasn't reporting. He's like, I got to hurry up and report it.
Well, because Waller called him back straight out and just told him.
Yeah.
But we're in the same spot, Bobby. Nothing has changed. There's nothing new to report. We're sitting in the same spot as we were basically back then. The Giants are sitting here. They're waiting for Darren Waller's, answer. They're basically operating, and I've said this for months now. They're operating as if he's not going to be here.
And is that?
I think that's their expectation.
Do you think with time it becomes more likely or less likely that he's back?
I think it was always not likely. I always thought it was a long shot for him to be back. I still think that. And that's just my opinion, just following the clues. But
me, just like from a human, mindset, I think the closer he gets to having to throw away $6 million, the harder that's going to get, right? Like we all may be pissed off and like, you know what? Fuck this money. I don't give a damn about it. And then when it gets time to actually not have that money, then you're like, you know what? I could use that dough.
I think it's more of his desire. Okay, if I wait, let's see if maybe my desire to play changes. If I see all my friends and people I know out there practicing, I think he's already relented to the fact that he's willing to give up the money.
Wow, because again, it seems he's not going to be there. And then with Slayton, right? Now that we've reached the official OTAs, I think the story's a little bit bigger than those initial get-togethers, first day type of stuff they do in April. Any chance he misses any of camp or a deal gets done?
I don't know. I think it would befit the Giants to make sure he's happy. They still want him, right? They made that very clear. Yeah, they could force him to come, but do they really want an unhappy Darius Slayton in that room? He's the veteran guy, right? He's the guy that they're all lean on. He's the leader of that room. I don't know if it would be beneficial for them to have an unhappy Darius Slayton. And look, he's done a lot for this team if you think about it. He took a pay cut a couple of years back, remember? He was the one that had no leverage. He took the pay cut.
Do you have any idea of like what he's looking for? Like, is it Gabe Davis money? Is it $9 million per year? Like, what are we looking at here with him? Because his market is kind of sure to go down a bit after this year. Now that they finally have someone who should outproduce him in the wide receiver room.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. He lost leverage by obviously drafting Neighbors. If they didn't draft Neighbors, he would have gained a significant amount of leverage. So that didn't help his cause here. But I think he's just trying to get some sort of Giant security honking at me as they leave.
Jerry Meade?
Maybe. I can't say that on camera. I might be in danger.
Is it the bald guy? We don't know what he does. We just see him everywhere.
Oh, Jim Ryan? They're all security guys. But no, whatever. Anyway, Darius Slayton we're talking about. I just think he wants to have something that gives him more fair value or maybe takes care of him moving forward in the future. So we'll see. He's using every bit of leverage he has. I don't blame him even the slightest. The Giants used every bit of leverage they had on him a couple of years ago. First of all, they stuffed him in a locker and made him like the seventh string. He worked his way back up to being their leading receiver, right? And then but before that, they forced him to take a pay cut. So he has every right to try and, if he can get a little bit more, go for it. I don't have any questions about whether Darius Slayton's going to come here, be in good shape, or whether he knows the offense or has trouble picking up the offense.
Right.
That's probably the least of your problem. So until it's training camp and he misses time, I don't look at it as a big deal yet.
Same. I agree. I'm glad they didn't use this as a way to move off him. I think until Jalen Hyatt proves he's a number 2, you can't just hope that it's true. And
even then, you need depth. I mean, depth is so valuable. We've seen.
That's the other thing.
So many times.
It's frustrating that every time, okay, well, we got this guy. No longer. No. Yes, we need. It's okay. It's okay to have more than one good player at a position.
He's a better all-around player than Jalen Hyatt, too. By
far. If we're going off of how they ended the season last year,
I'm just going off what I see as players. Like Darius Slayton's a good all-around player. He can do a lot of things. Like he can get open, he can catch passes. He has his weak spots. Don't get me wrong. But Jalen Hyatt, from what you see, is kind of like a one-trick pony at this point.
Which I think
otherwise.
I think that's one of the more fascinating dynamics for this team right now. Is because Malik Neighbors, he's going to be getting essentially all the snaps, right? You don't see him coming off the field very often. Wandale is your true slot-only guy, so he's not going to come off the field a ton, or at least not in 3 wide receiver sets. Slayton, like we said, is better than Hyatt, but they were willing to take Hyatt in the second round. They traded up for him. They obviously like him a lot. And I think that's why Slayton probably has an urgency to get a deal done, because he can see the writing on the wall that even if I don't deserve it, I may be losing 200 snaps this year.
There is a world, though, where both those guys can still see 30 to 40 snaps a game, just in a constant.
I agree.
Wide receiver is a position where you can rotate consistently.
Yeah, I agree. But again, it's at some point there's going to be guys taken off the field when they don't feel like that. Someone's going to feel slighted out of those two. It's just Darius Slayton or Jalen Hyatt, as long as everyone stays healthy, will feel slighted at some point this season. Whether they're vocal and make a stink about it, but someone will feel slighted, which I wouldn't blame either one of them.
The likelihood is that one of those guys is going to get injured anyway at some point.
Yeah, last year was the year they built the offseason depth, and then they never needed it. And Sterling Shepard was a healthy.
Wouldn't even mention Isaiah Hodgins.
That's the crazy thing. It's he's wide receiver 5. He was wide receiver 2 going into camp last year.
He was wide receiver 1 when they went into the playoffs 2 years ago.
Slayton was.
He basically became Daniel's favorite receiver, though. Late in that season, he had really picked it up. We could sit here and argue that's semantics, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, but hey, it's he's a good player to have as depth there. Some other quick questions.
Mm-hmm.
When they're on defense, one is Nubin with the first team already, and then who's that second safety with Pinnock out there?
Dane Belton. Nubin's got to earn it. I think Dane Belton, by the way, I said this even when Nubin was drafted, was going to get a legit shot to be the starter.
Who had the interception today? I saw Javarius. There's a picture of Javarius Owens and Jason Pinnock celebrating. Did someone get an interception or a fumble or something?
There was an almost interception by Dane Belton.
Why were Javarius Owens and Jason Pinnock celebrating where they were jumping 6 feet in the air to each other?
Could have just been on anything. I mean, after a stop, there was a lot of celebrating and cheering after successful and unsuccessful plays for both sides. And also, we were on the other side, so the deep pass, we were I couldn't even see if it was Belton. I couldn't see if he should have caught an interception, or it was dropped, or it was knocked down, or what it was, because you're kind of blocked by guys at times. So it's hard to really see the back end of the secondary. All I know is that Dane Belton was the guy that was working there, and Nick McLeod was actually working in as kind of the first team nickel, which I thought was weird because Nick McLeod finished the season strong, playing well as the outside cornerback 2. Flop finished the season playing pretty well as the slot cornerback. And now what do we do coming into this year? They switched that.
Yeah, here's the thing: is in the I've been doing streams of Shane Bone's defense, going through
They
him.
want a guy that could tackle better on the interior.
You can't have Cordell Flott on the nickel corner. Like he actually does fit better as an outside corner in this defense, and like he just does, right? And he said he's only 177 pounds today, which he was 175 at the combine.
That's crazy in the NFL, by the way.
Yeah, I saw a picture
That's
of him
not a lot.
yesterday on the Giants website, and it's like, okay, still extremely skinny with Cordell Flott. So obviously he's in line to start out there, and then I'm sure Drew Phillips will get in there at some point.
Nick McLeod's not their guy. You know what I mean?
Yeah, he
Even
just
though he might
seems
be
like the
better than
consummate
some of the guys.
backup.
He's not. They didn't draft. They drafted Cordell Flott. They didn't draft Nick McLeod. They took him off waivers. They drafted Drew Phillips. They didn't draft Nick McLeod. Seems like he's going to be the one who gets the shaft.
Right. Trying to think if there's anything else of note that I have. How's it like seeing Theo Johnson in person? He's a big son of a bitch, huh?
He is big. Theo Johnson running with the first team was interesting. Because Daniel Bellinger wasn't here. So that was interesting. They were short on defensive linemen. Like Nacho wasn't here. Nunez Roches. Jordan Phillips wasn't here. So Ryder Anderson was running with the first team defense. You always forget about Ryder Anderson and you're like, huh? So
Not us.
Ryder Anderson, Yadni Kahus, Josh Ezeudu, these are guys that are running with the Giants first team today. Makes you think, hey, how much depth does this team really have? Those kind of things stand out. Theo Johnson, who's a rookie tight end, running with the first team. Granted, talented guy, but what, 5th round pick?
Fourth.
It's not ideal.
Not Rodney. Ryder Anderson's like a talking Giant star. So when we did the Andrew Thomas interview, he was signed to the 50 signed to the 90-man roster that day. So in my hotel room, me and Justin watched Ryder Anderson film, correctly assessed that he needs to move from edge to defensive line. And then he was our just random yell at guy in training camp in 2022, and he ended up making the 53-man roster at some point that season.
Do you want him starting for the Giants?
No, but he is a star. Like talking Giants, like if there's one person that's in the bottom 30 on the roster that talking Giants listeners like, it's Ryder Anderson.
Okay. They need an interior rusher, though. I think that is something when you look at that line and you look at the depth of the line, you're like, somebody really needs to emerge as a rusher on the interior there. I know Dex is a push guy.
Their defensive tackle group is a perfect example of why you just draft best player available over need, right? Because a year ago, I really wanted Kalijah Kancey. Now, he didn't fall to the Giants, but people are like, oh, well, they have defensive tackles. Well, guess what? Now they don't. And it went from a strength from a very long time. And then they lost B.J. Hill, and then they lost Dalvin, and then they lost Austin Johnson, and then it went to extreme weakness. Then it became a strength last year, and then now it's a weakness again outside of Dexter Lawrence. So,
yeah.
I
remember that being the case when they drafted Ruben Randall. Everyone's like, they don't need wide receivers. They have Victor Cruz and this guy or whatever. I think maybe was Nick's there. I don't know, but whatever it was at the time, and then. 2 years, and then the next year later, like Victor Cruz is injured, patella or whatever, and you're sitting there, you're like, hey, I get it why you keep drafting players, even in positions that look like you don't need.
Yeah. Strengths become weaknesses very quick in the NFL.
Real quick in this league.
How'd you enjoy the softball game? We'll end on this, and also, I think I'm a Tommy DeVito guy again, right? Where I was kind of anti DeVito because I was like, he's not better than Tyrod Taylor, right? But now the hate
out there is crazy.
It's ridiculous. Oh, the guy who came in played halfway decent enough. If you should hate anyone, hate Brian Dable because he coached them up a good game plan to win those games. And he is like living the dream. He is a star, right? When you see him in person and you see the people, it's like, no, there's I don't think there's ever been a wider gap in people in real life and people have fucking stuck on Twitter on their thoughts of somebody. Like people in real life are like awesome, like the guy, happy for him, and then people on Twitter are like, oh, I hate him. I'm a Tommy DeVito guy.
I wrote that story with the chip on the shoulder.
I'm hoping he wins QB2 job now.
The comments were crazy. They were bananas. Like the people was like somebody basically wished death on him. It's like, dude, what is wrong with you? Like, first of all, what did this guy do? How do you blame that on him? because he won games. A third string guy who's from New Jersey, right? The only thing you could blame him for is actually playing pretty well for what he was. He was a guy that, honestly, I didn't even think he was going to make the team when I first saw him in like the spring last year. He made the team, started games as an undrafted rookie, won some games, he did get overexposed. I'm part of that. You could blame me for that. It's not his fault. He got overexposed. But yeah, the hate for Tommy DeVito, I don't really get. And people, I think, still really like the Tommy DeVito story. When you see him in person, they're like, hey, it's Tommy DeVito, hey, good job, we're proud of you, keep it up. But then social media, it's like, that bum cost us draft picks. He won game. God forbid.
You know what cost them draft picks?
He won games.
Is the Giants finally had like a pretty good coaching staff. That's what cost the Giants draft picks. Is that when what
won them? You know what cost them draft picks? The guy on the Patriots missed the gimme field goal to at least tie the game. That was the game. That was the crucial game in retrospect.
Oh yeah, I was there for it.
Yeah.
That was my fault because I'm undefeated in Giants games out of 10. But yeah, I'm now a Tommy DeVito guy. I'm actually worried about his family at training camp because last year they were like, talk about DeVito, and we're like, okay, whatever. Now they're going to be like hounding us, and I'm actually worried about them. But even his parents,
and you know what? He can do some things. He does some good things. I get it. He holds the ball a little long. He's got to process quicker. That's certainly something he needs to work on. But the dude can make some good throws. He made some good throws today. He can make some bad throws too. But
yeah, he can improve.
I don't know.
Last year, walking away from the preseason, it's like, okay, maybe this guy can battle for a backup job. Eventually, I don't ever think he'll be a starter, but I think he can battle for a backup job. So I'm not. I went from being like the anti-DeVito guy, not because anything.
You were the anti-DeVito guy because you were the pro-Tyrod guy.
Yeah, well, I was just like, this guy's clearly better. What are we doing here? And then now I'm back. I'm the pro Tommy DeVito guy.
And maybe if Tyrod started, they would have lost some of those games.
Maybe. Yeah, they might. Yeah, no, they wouldn't have. Anyways,
it was fun. The softball game was fun. There's a lot of former and current Giants out there. It's fun to see everyone in that environment. So I don't know. It's a good, rare, like
good vibes moment.
Place where it's all positivity. There's no reason to be negative or down when you're like at something like that. Like, guys, it's for charity. You're doing it for a good cause. The guys are out there giving their time, trying to have fun. I would have loved to see Eli Manning now, because last time I remember Eli Manning got up to the game. That's lefty, by the way. I don't know if I'm pretty sure he hits lefty. I think he said that. But he did. He was hitting lefty and basically took this huge swing and hit a swinging bunt down the first baseline.
Yeah, I know. We were hoping for that just to get the clip because they've been emphasizing YouTube shorts. And I'm like, that will be the biggest one, is Eli having a horrible at-bat in softball. That would have done numbers, and we didn't get it.
Kayvon Thibodeau trying to swing a bat might have done.
Oh, he's awful. Then honestly, I judge him. How can you forget when the girls were pitching, like the actual softball pitchers? It's one thing to swing and miss.
He couldn't hit.
It's one thing to swing and miss a couple times at a slow pitch softball, right? It happens. To just be flat out, I cannot make any good contact of slow pitch softball. How are you How are you a professional athlete and can't do that? I'm shocked at how bad he is at it.
Well, you could tell because he was like taking swinging lessons at the beginning there from somebody, and like they were basically teaching him how to even swing in the first place. So yeah, I'm with you. I guess I was obviously a pedestrian athlete growing up, not at any sort of.
We could hit a softball. Like I
could hit a softball. I could, like, my son. I saw him recently. He's 4 years old, hitting in tennis, and the girls are crushing the ball, and the boys are slamming the ball. My son's missing every time. And so I said to my daughter, I was like, yo, we have to do something like this. We can't have him be the kid who like literally can't even catch a ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You gotta have it just so you're not like embarrassed and people aren't making fun of you. Like, you gotta at least. So yeah, when I see that, I'm like, how could you not even hit? But I've seen it before, Bobby. There's tons of, beefhead, like football players who go and play basketball, and they literally cannot shoot a basketball for the life of them. It's like
that's
they're
understandable.
Shooting bricks up there.
That's understandable
because they're so big and they can't move.
That's understandable. A slow pitch softball, you got to be able to just make at least one clean contact with it
You
one
should at
time.
least be able to shoot a jumper. Everybody shoots a jumper and plays basketball in their life. Not everyone even plays baseball. Everybody should be able to shoot a basic jump shot, an 8-foot jump shot, not throw up a brick on a 10-footer.
That's fair too. Yeah, so we need more out of our Giants pass rushers when it comes to other sports. All right, that's an interview. What do you got coming down the pipe? Articles on the podcast. What do you got going on?
I definitely have something on Malik Neighbors coming up in the next few weeks. Also, some interesting stuff I took from today on sort of the defense. You know, I think it's interesting the defensive ends, so the effect that Brian Burns can have on Kayvon Thibodeau. He spoke a little bit today about how Hassan Reddick, when he came, you know, it was the third year he came to Carolina, and how that kind of helped him. And then Andre Patterson also working with the ends is interesting.
That's that was something when Bowen was hired. We were like, I hope they do this, but it's like they're not going to do it, and I was surprised. And then Charlie Boulin, he said, Charlie Boulin, he said
Chuck
Boulin.
They both called him Chuck.
Oh yeah, I saw that.
Chuck.
They asked him like, "What can Kayvon get better?" He's like, "Consistency." I was like, "Oh, okay, that was a pretty honest answer. I like hearing that."
Yeah.
So,
But I mean, that's obvious. You could watch him play. He had some really big games where you're like, "Wow, look at this guy!" And same as his rookie year. Like that's sort of been his MO his first 2 years, and I think he would admit that. There's too many games where you're like, "Where was Kayvon?"
Yeah.
And then the good games he has, you're like, "This guy could be a star in this league."
Yep. All right, cool. I appreciate you jumping on. We'll next time we'll see you'll probably be in the van. So excited for that. We'll see you then. On to the next one. All right, thank you, Jordan, for jumping on the show. So we'll close out here. I want to expound on one thing. And when I ended the interview with Jordan, this kind of got to me, and I tweeted it out too. Right, because Josh Ezeudu's been working at tackle in the Giants OTAs because Thomas isn't participating in team drills, and Evan Neal, I guess, is not ready yet for the full 11-on-11 team drills with his injury. And you see Josh Ezeudu at tackle, and you're like, okay, well, he's not going to start there, right? But the more and more I think about it, I actually get really bothered that he's even practicing there. You drafted this guy 67th overall 2 years ago. That's a high draft pick. What did you do? You didn't draft him to be a backup tackle. You drafted him to be a guard. At that time, you had Andrew Thomas. You just drafted Evan Neal 7th overall. You drafted this guy to be a guard. So why are we wasting any time having this guy go up against Brian Burns and get his ass kicked in OTA to be an OTA body, right? What purpose is that? Is that serving? Because he's not good at it. Two, like, you're not trying to win a game. You're not trying to put your best player out there. And even if you were, you'd throw Jermaine Eleanor out there, at least hopefully so. So let him work at guard, right? If you just need an OTA body, put Marcus McKeithen out there. Put anyone out there besides Josh Ezeudu, who you put a big investment in this guy. Let him work at guard. I'm not saying put him as a starting guard. Put him as the swing guard. Let him work at left guard and right guard. Let him be the first backup at guard. Let him work because he actually has a chance to succeed at that in the NFL, right? So why are we wasting any time letting him practice at tackle? That should never be the plan. If there is ever a place where the Giants need to put Josh Ezeudu at tackle, it should be because the top 4 tackles on the roster got hurt. It should be because Andrew Thomas, Evan Neal, Jermaine Eleanor, and whatever 4th tackle you have got hurt. That should be emergency situation only. I could even live with him being the 4th tackle. But you shouldn't have him practicing at it. Like, one, he was bad at it. His confidence has to be shot by the way his season ended with him ending Daniel Jones or giving Daniel Jones this neck injury. All right, that's how Josh Ezeudu's season ended, essentially, because he went out early versus Buffalo, like crying in the locker room. Get this guy's confidence back. Let him work at guard. That is the position he came to play. So, just when we ended that interview, like, I know the offensive line rotation stuff bothers me. I understand some of it, but I do understand why coaches do it, even though I disagree with it. What I don't understand is why are we wasting any time with Josh Ezeudu working at tackle. So. Enjoy your guys' weekend, Memorial Day weekend. So we'll be back on Tuesday with something. Watch the Indy 500, watch the Coke 600, watch some racing, have some barbecue, have a good time. We appreciate you guys all so very much. We will see you on Tuesday. Until then, let's go Big Blue.